Hello, and thanks for tuning in to Powell Software's Welcome to the New Normal video podcast series. Powell Software develops digital workplace solutions that improve the employee experience, helping companies write their own future of work by leveraging the talent of their entire workforce. I'm Tony Todd from Rumeur Publique in Paris, and in this series, we are speaking with business leaders, thinkers, and visionaries to explore the megatrends, the ecosystems, and the technology that are shaping the way we live, the way we work, as the economy recovers and as we emerge into the new normal. Our guest today is Lukas Neckermann. Hi, Lukas. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tony.
Lukas is a mobility expert who's written a number of books, including The Mobility Revolution, and he's Chief Operating Officer at Split, the world's leading mobility network. Lukas, you're also an expert on smart cities. The pandemic has had a huge impact on cities with people flooding to the countryside. Is the concept of the city over, or has its story only just begun?
Tony, let's dispel a few preconceptions and notions around cities and the rural countryside being better or worse places to be during a pandemic. Quite frankly, that's not necessarily the case. We have seen some cities worldwide, Seoul, Taipei, Singapore, do much, much better than other places like, say, Milan or New York or Paris during the pandemic. And that's frankly not a question of, is one city better than the other? It's a question of policy choices. It's a question of resilience even pre-pandemic. And it's a question of the data that they used during a pandemic. But it's not just a comparison between City 1 and City 2. It's very much also a question of rural areas, perhaps not having all of those resources that a city does to be resilient during a pandemic. All of the things that we love about a city, including education and social life and, of course, business, will make cities very, very popular post-pandemic as well. But the better access to healthcare is what made, for example, cities fare much better in terms of the mortality rates, the unfortunate mortality rates in the US in the tail end of the pandemic. Yes, cities were, in fact, the better place to be than rural areas come the end of 2020 in the US. So we think that, yes, cities have a great future, even going forward, but it'll be different because we'll have much, much more teleworking, more hybrid working, and new modes of working altogether.
It's a very interesting point that you raise about teleworking. Are we now in a position where anyone can telework?
Frankly, no, because coffee still needs to be served, cars still need to be built, and doctors still need to perform their services. But what we do know is that a much greater proportion of roles will be teleworkable post-pandemic, perhaps up to 25-30%. And even for those roles, Tony, that are not technically teleworkable, certainly the roles will be improved. And I'm thinking, for example, about telehealth. But the big change will come to people who in the past have gone to and from an office.
Now, as teleworking expands, we're going to see a lot more of hybrid working, which means the way we move around a city, from the countryside to the city, as we commute, that is going to change. Now, you're an expert on urban mobility, Lukas. How is the way we interact in terms of mobility, how is the way we interact with cities changing? Has it been accelerated by COVID?
Well, so long, mobility has defined not just how we worked, but where we worked and also where we lived. Now we have a lot of new options available to us through this. If I'm only wanting to go to the office or needing to go to an office one day, 2 days a week, that of course changes a lot of things about my mobility behaviors. And it also changes the way business models are set up. Let's just think about public transport, who's in the business of providing peak service 5 days a week through monthly passes. Now, if that goes away, I have an option for other modes of transport. Maybe if I'm not traveling during peak times, maybe if I'm only coming to the office for collaboration and not production, then I might choose ride hailing or car sharing or even an e-bike or scooters. And what I need then is a mobility as a service solution, something that brings everything together in a way that's transparent and easy to use for me.
If the number of modes of transport that we use to get around the cities is changing, and the way we interact with public transport is changing, is that going to give rise to a new way of using technology? I'm thinking about super apps like on the WeChat model, perhaps, that we see in China. Are these super apps coming into our lives? Are they already here?
There are apps already that bring together multiple modes of transports, both in a city or even outside of a city. Those apps are generally known as mobility as a service app. But from my perspective, the even more exciting prospect is the super apps that you mentioned, Tony. The WeChat, the Alipay, the Grab, even the Uber. Those apps that bring together not just mobility, but perhaps even food delivery and other services into one simple interface and really solve problems that people have every single day.
Lukas, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a pleasure. All the best.
And thanks everyone else for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks for another episode of Powell Software's Welcome to the New Normal. Don't forget to subscribe to our video channel and look out for us on Twitter and LinkedIn. See you next time.